Hamas faces the biggest demonstrations yet against its 12-year rule of the Gaza Strip. Hundreds of Palestinians have been taking to the streets to protest the dire living conditions in the blockaded territory. And for more, I'm joined from Ramallah by Deputy Regional Director of Amnesty International's Middle East and North Africa arm, Saleh Higazi. Saleh, great to have you with us. Give us a bit of context here. Why now? Why are we seeing this pushback from the Gazans towards Hamas now?
Well, look, this takes place, the protests are called We Want to Live, and it takes place in the context of more than 12 years of an Israeli-imposed illegal blockade that severely restricts the economic situation and the living situation generally of people living in Gaza. In this context of the 12 years of this illegal blockade, there were three devastating wars that took a heavy toll on civilian life there. So these protests, when they first came out, and if you read the releases that the organizers have put out, they criticize, firstly, this situation that is imposed by the occupation, but they also criticize policies that are imposed on them by both the Palestinian authorities based in the West Bank, as well as new policies imposed by the Hamas de facto administration in Gaza. Unfortunately, instead of allowing for the freedom of expression and assembly, Hamas has launched this brutal crackdown on the protests before they even began. This crackdown started, you could say, at the 10th of March when Hamas forces arrested organizers of the protests from inside of the home they were meeting at, and then started with the use of excessive force against demonstrators when they started mobilizing on the streets. This crackdown continues until today, and we're seeing some extremely worrying trends, including arbitrary arrest and detention, torture and ill treatment, and preventing the journalists and the press from as well as human rights defenders, workers in human rights organizations, from carrying out their work.
And what about your organization? Is Amnesty International being granted freedom of movement to go and help and speak with those who are being targeted in these protests?
Unfortunately, we've been prevented by Israel from entering the Gaza Strip since 2012, despite us asking for permission to do so since then. We continue to call on the Israeli authorities to allow us to enter the Gaza Strip so that we can carry out our human rights work, including by focusing and investigating violations carried out by the authorities in Gaza.
All right, looking at this harsh crackdown, we were looking, of course, at some violent images just earlier as you were speaking about the kind of punishments that protesters are enduring for protesting, and you're talking about free speech. Based on the work that you do and what you know, is Hamas exploiting the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip?
I'm not sure I'm in a position to answer this question. The humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip is Israel has the primary responsibility for the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. It is the occupying power.
Does Israel have the power? Because, of course, if Hamas is calling for Israel's destruction, does Israel only hold the cards here? Of course, we're also seeing, as you mentioned, the Palestinian Authority putting measures in place that continue to squeeze the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip for its political gain too.
Israel remains the occupying power in full control of the occupied Palestinian territories. It has been imposing a 12-year illegal blockade on the Gaza Strip.
What about Egypt's blockade? Why do we keep just talking about Israel? Of course, there are many parties here involved in what's creating this dire situation in the Gaza Strip. There's the blockade from Israel. There's the blockade from Egypt. We've got Hamas and its rule there. We've seen the violent measures it uses for people that try to speak out. We've got the Palestinian Authority, of course, squeezing salaries. Right.
Let me say, again, I repeat this. Israel is the occupying power, and therefore it is the primary duty bearer when it comes to the occupied population in the Gaza Strip. Egypt, as well as the Palestinian Authority, as well as Hamas, being the de facto authority in the Gaza Strip, have also responsibility to ensure human rights and protect human rights. We're not saying that there are no responsibilities on these other authorities, but Israel remains the occupying power. This is an occupied territory. It has been imposing a 12-year illegal blockade. that amounts to collective punishment, which is leading to this situation you're seeing today.
Saleh, looking at what the demonstrators are complaining about, even children are among these protesters. They're talking about the dire economic situation and living conditions in the Gaza Strip. We know that youth unemployment runs at about 70%. Tell us what the difference is between the way Hamas officials and their families are living and then the rest of the population.
I have no information about this.
All right, we've seen some information as put out by Amnesty International